Heavy is one of those classes that you either hate or love depending on the play style that you enjoy in Warhammer 40,000 Space Marine 2. In this video today, we're going to go over my heavy build, how I approach it, how I break down each weapon, as well as giving you a breakdown of each perk selection as you level up through the game by breaking it into 3 sets of 8, or each row as it were. If this is your first time on my channel, the way I do things is by upfronting the knowledge in my videos. So as you can see, this is the entire perk tree that I use. The only difference here is that this first perk will swap out from this one to this one if I'm using a Multi-Melta. So if that's all you wanted to know, please just kind of feel free to pause the video as it is, boot the game up, and either copy this perk layout or set it up however you want. But if that's all you wanted to know, please feel free to shut the video down and get back to enjoying Space Marine 2. But before you head out, please don't forget to like, comment, or subscribe if this video does end up helping you, because that does end up helping me quite a bit. And also, I will be streaming this game as well as plenty of others on my Twitch, which you can find linked in the description below. So stop by, watch some multiplayer, watch some operations, whatever it is. And you can also find my other class guides linked in the upper right hand corner. But let's get started here on my ultimate guide to the heavy class in Space Marine 2. Starting us off, let's take a look at the first 8 levels of heavy. And we're going to start too by looking at this. So our ability, of course, is Iron Halo. A powerful barrier blocks all range damage. Now this is only in an 180 degree in front of you, not a full 360, which would be really cool if they had a perk that did that. But the starting perk here is when the Iron Halo is active, all squad members within 50 meters take 10% less damage from ranged attacks. They don't need to be under the Iron Halo, they just need to be within 50 meters of you as long as Iron Halo is active. And we'll be keying off this aspect of active Iron Halo, giving us some sort of passive benefit either to ourselves or to our entire team. So for our first 8 levels, our first perk is actually pretty good, Restoration. Killing 10 enemies in rapid succession restores 1 armor segment. Cooldown is 15 seconds. You'll be doing this quite a bit, especially depending upon if you're using the Multi-Melta, if you're using the plasma gun, if you're using the heavy bolter, whatever it is. If I was using the Multi-Melta, I would choose the perk right below it, but you'll be using this perk for the rest of your play style with the heavy, again, as long as you're not using the Multi-Melta. Level 2 brings us over here to Thermal Boost. When a ranged weapon is 50% overheated, range damage increases by 15%. This one's very situational. It's going to depend upon, again, what weapon you're using, and also what type of weapon you're using. Furthermore, in the sense that if I'm using a plasma weapon with a low venting speed, that means I'm going to be overheating quite a bit. Venting speed doesn't just simply dictate how fast a weapon vents its doesn't dictate how fast the weapon vents, but also it dictates how many shots you get before you have to vent or overheat. So this can be advantageous if you want to go with the relic version of the plasma gun, which has very low venting speed but has more more ammo. So you can take advantage of that by basically getting a little bit more damage out of it. We're going to use it here to begin with, but we'll be swapping off of it because of the next perk that is also bugged and better. Lastly, in the core section, we have Overcharge. Damage of charge attacks is increased by 20%. This is actually very good because one of the key ways to play the heavy is whenever you get invested in melee, just simply quickly charge your attack to do your stomp and do it again to follow up with a secondary stomp. If you're surrounded by minorous enemies and you keep this stomp up, it'll activate a gun strike after every single one, and everything will be cleared out around you. So this enables you to keep your armor up while your teammates get a chance to clear the rest of the field for you. So the first 3 perks are actually quite good, whereas a lot of classes don't really kind of benefit from that. Our first team perk here is Encompassing Aegis, or Aegis. All squad members take 20% less damage from range attacks. Just keep this on and set it and forget it. I was really debating between these two for quite a bit, but 20% flat range damage reduction at all times is so huge. When in Ruthless, the biggest things that do the most damage to you are really gaunts with any kind of ranged weapon, those sniper cultists, the Chaos Space Marines that are shooting you from range, the Devourer on any of the Tyranid Warriors, which is the small little gun that shoots those kind of green pellets from far away, or the snipers. Those things really can tank a Ruthless run. And having the ability to have the 20% from this, plus your passive additional 10% less from ranged attacks, is absolutely massive. It's so massive. My character went from struggling with health to really not having much of a problem with it because my armor is just kind of always up versus being chunked apart by ranged units. Into our next level, we have Adamant Will. After Iron Halo deactivates, you take 20% less health damage for 5 seconds. This one's okay. We're going to swap to it towards the bottom of the chain. The thing here is this is 20% less health damage for 5 seconds. The one they're going to replace this with just helps us with armor, which is effectively the same thing in the sense that we don't even take health damage. We just take armor damage. So I'd rather have armor than health. So, well, I'd rather have more armor than mitigating health damage. So Adamant Will be there for, in the meantime. Remember, this is after Iron Halo deactivates, not when it runs out of energy, which is both. Running out of energy is a deactivation, but you can manually deactivate it. You can also have it deactivated if something hits you and you lose control of the character. And even you don't even need to really lose control. Someone can hit you hard enough and you'll deactivate your Iron Halo, like in melee. So there's a lot of use cases for this versus some of the other ones that say when your energy is depleted. So it's really good. Next is to the Bastion, Obdurate Bastion. Iron Halo's durability increases by 20%. Iron Halo's durability already kind of suffers, and I don't like anything else in this line. This is where you're gonna choose it, and you're gonna stick there because I'm used to playing heavy with a lot of Ruthless gameplay. If you're not playing in Ruthless a whole ton, feel free to try some of the other ones, but I think this one's really good, and we'll talk about those once we get to them. Next up is Saving Grace. Reviving a squad member fully restores Iron Halo's charge. When you first get access to this, it's great, but we will swap off of it, and it is nice just to kind of have Iron Halo up more active, but it does rely on your teammates getting downed, and having to kind of make builds around that kind of sucks in the sense that you don't want to build off of the fact that your teammates get knocked down, especially in Ruthless. Signature, when active, Iron Halo deals damage over time to all enemies within 5 meters. You can take this to start, you can skip it. It's a really small amount of damage, so it's dealer's choice, really. If you don't have the requisition, it's your first character you're leveling up, I would skip this one entirely. The damage is so minute that you're really not going to notice much of a difference. Let's jump to our next 8 levels now. Level 9 is going to bring us into Multi-Kill. Killing 5 or more enemies with 1 shot from Multi-Melta restores ammo by 1. Like I said, if you're using the Multi-Melta, you will take this perk. It is king. It will keep your Multi-Melta's small ammo significantly charged up all the time. 5 or more enemies is very quickly, right? But keep in mind though, this is not in rapid succession, it's with 1 shot. So you're gonna wanna target those swarms of Minoris that get up on your cookie jar. This is really gonna help you knock them out. So our next one here is Fortitude. I'm going to swap to this. Health increases by 20%. There is an additional bug to this perk. If you have it active, every time you use a drop pod, it will fully restore your health. Depending on when you hear or see or watch this video, that might have been fixed. But I still think having 20% more health is overall better for the heavy, because as you're leveling up, you're going to struggle to learn the timing of the parry. It's a very clunky class to begin with, and I'll talk about that more in the core lesson section of this video, but having that extra health is just such a nice boon. Even if they get rid of the bug that fully restores your health, it's a great perk. Next 2 is Overwhelming Power. When Iron Halo is active, all squad members within 10 meters deal 10% more range damage. I like this over the charged attacks. If you're playing with a very ranged squad, this is super advantageous, but it also just benefits you. So it's always a flat 10% range damage increase when you have Iron Halo active. I like it quite a bit. I use it. I could understand though wanting to stick with the charged attack damage increase. You actually do quite a bit of damage with this overcharge. I'm sorry, you do quite a bit of damage with your charge attacks. You'll do significantly more with overcharge. So again, dealer's choice. Are you playing with a bunch of melee characters? Then maybe this isn't as helpful to you, but I've been playing with my friends that are playing a tactical and a sniper right now, and it's been awesome. Next up here for team, we have additional supplies. Ammo capacity for all squad members' weapons is increased by 25%. I think if you're not playing on Ruthless, choose this, truly. Because if you're struggling with ammunition, especially in the leveling portions of heavy, when you don't have a lot of perks either on the weapon or on the class themselves to give you more ammunition, just go ahead and go with this rather than the 20% less range damage. The first 2 difficulties, you're not going to deal with that much of an issue with range damage. And the third difficulty, substantial, is only going to be, it's going to be very kind of dependent on how the map goes to deal with that range damage. So if you're really struggling with ammo, go with this. And then once you get to max level and you have more levels on your actual weapons, jump back to this. Just kind of depends on how you are leveling up personally. Next, we have consecutive execution. Killing 10 enemies in rapid succession restores equipment charge. Cooldown is 180 seconds, which, as people have corrected me, is not 2 minutes, it's 3 minutes. My computational skills are terrible. But I would skip this one. Having an extra restore on my equipment charge is nowhere near as helpful as getting 20% less health damage or armor, as we'll see in just a little bit. Completely skip it, don't touch it. Field adjustment. Iron Halo recharges 20% faster, but its durability is reduced by 30%. I looked at this and I've read some comments about people really liking it, but on Ruthless, I just don't have Iron Halo up long enough for this to really be worthwhile. And what I'm saying by long enough, I mean that the durability of it is just getting chunked apart. And I'm really looking for the quick bits of saving grace that the Iron Halo gives me versus any kind of long-term or short-term benefit from other perks that I get when it's either off charge or on charge, whatever it is. So the durability loss was just not worth the recharge on it. And also do consider what your party comp is going to play with. Are you playing solo? Well, then this is going to be maybe better for you. Are you playing with friends and maybe they're using a Vanguard or a sniper that can really help out with your ability recharge? Well, then this is a redundancy and it's not really worth it. So consider those things. Ask your friends, hey, are you taking the team perk that helps me recover my my ability recharge? If they say yes, then maybe you try this out. Or if they say no, then maybe you try this out. If they say yes, then skip it. I think it's just not worth it overall. Brute Force, when Iron Halo is in cooldown, range damage is increased by 15%. This is good, and I would actually choose this one until I get to the last one, but reviving a squad member fully restores, that's cool and all, but I'd rather just have the 15% range damage increase. I think overall it's a better perk. Into Signature, we have Coolant Reserve. If both your squad members are incapacitated or grabbed, your primary weapon will not overheat. This is too specific of a use case. Grabbed means that they're grabbed by a Ravager or a Ravener or a Lictor. Again, 20 years of experience in this damn hobby, and I get nothing right. Lictor or a Ravener, then yeah, maybe this is a thing, right? And one of them is capacitated, but your primary weapon will not overheat. It's not worth it enough for me to really hinge upon this. Like, okay, this is maybe going to help me clutch, but I'm going to want to go with this one or this one instead. And I don't even think this is a great perk at all, but at least this is constantly giving me value versus this is only giving me value in very specific instances. So I'm not a huge fan of this perk. Now, the bottom line is kind of disappointing for the heavy. As you can see, I've not touched anything. So coming into our final 8 levels of heavy, how does this progression go? We've got auxiliary ammunition. When your primary weapon is out of ammo, killing 10 enemies in rapid succession restores ammo reserve by 20%. When I'm out of ammo, it's usually like a unanimous out of ammo across the board. I'm not like, oh, I've got full ammo on my secondary. Because of the nature of the ammo reserves you have, I'm constantly swapping between my primary and secondary to maximize my ammo usage. And this, to me, by the time I have got it, I don't have the capacity to kill 10 enemies in rapid succession to get the ammo restoration here. And this only works if your primary weapon is completely out of ammo. And a lot of the times when I'm kind of nearing that red line, I'll keep some ammunition behind my primary to use them on high value targets before really getting to 0 on both. I don't want to have 0 on one and rely on the other, or vice versa. I'd rather just kind of bring them both down equally. So I don't find this to be a good perk. And furthermore, like I said, I'd rather just have armor. Killing 10 enemies in rapid succession gives me armor instead. That means I'm not taking damage. That means I'm not dying. That means I can go live to get more ammo. I find restoration to be far more valuable than this capability, which I think you really have to be good at dealing with situations where your primary is out of ammo and you're killing 10 things at once. You have to have frag grenades. You've got to have a lot of stuff ready to make this work, in my opinion. Strategic Stand, while in heavy stance, dealing damage restores 15% more contested health, but you will not be able to move. I don't like not being able to move because heavy stance is something that I kind of pop in and out of very quickly. I'm constantly kind of toggling it. So there is that to be considered, but that does then create a lot more input issues. Heavy already struggles from a lot of weird input issues between swapping in and out of heavy stance, swapping your weapons, charging your weapons, adding another possible input fallout point, whatever I'm trying to say, does not sound good to me. I don't like this overall. And again, dealing damage restores 15% more contested health. You use a plasma cannon, it shoots and explodes and deals chunks of health back to you if you need it. And Multi-Melta has a bug clearly right now where it will overheal your contested health. The only thing that really benefits from this is the heavy bolter, and the heavy bolter I definitely don't want to be pinned in one spot when I'm using because the damage is not bursty enough for me to get the highest value out of it. So I think this is an absolute skip, especially while Fortitude is bugged and Fortitude entirely restoring my health on a drop pod. Versatility, after switching weapons, your secondary weapon does 20% more damage. The effect lasts until reloading or switching back to your primary. This is pretty cool actually because I do swap back and forth quite a bit, and having my plasma pistol have a 20% damage increase is very nice. But overall, I just like the overall the team perk of this and the 10% more range damage on my primary that this affords me. My secondary already does quite a bit of damage. A charged plasma pistol shot is quite good. And I do swap quite a bit playing the heavy, but I like the overall damage increase from overwhelming power. I could understand you wanting to use versatility. It makes total sense to me. It's a personal preference and the way I like to approach this class. Like I've said before in all my videos, please use this guide as a means of giving you a guide on how to approach, but not creed. Break this, choose different perks, say, hey, you know what, that guy likes this, but I don't like to play that way. Then please, by all means, make the adjustments that make sense for the way you want to play the class. Next is Bonds of Brotherhood. Reviving a squad member restores them to full health. I actually very much love this ability. I think it's really good. This kind of makes the heavy the only true quote-unquote medic of the lot, because you can use this for a health restore to full. You can use this. You have a lot of really cool capabilities to help out the team. But I think, honestly, your teammates won't need to be revived as much if you're affording them 20% less range damage from attacks without doing anything. I think this is too valuable of a perk in the highest difficulty that I wouldn't come off of it. So I would skip this one and go to Emperor's Protection. So when Iron Halo expends all of its energy, one armor segment is restored to all of the squad members. That is huge, especially if you're in a really tight situation. Maybe you're overrun. There's a swarm that's hit you, it's hit your friends. You guys are all jumping around. You're trying to create as much distance as you can to try to live through the swarm. Pop your Iron Halo. Yeah, it's going to give you all of your range benefits and all that stuff. That's cool and dandy and all, but at least when the Iron Halo expends all of its energy, which it will do very quickly, right? Everyone will get one armor segment, and that's going to afford them a lot more survivability. This is a really, really good perk that this one just, in my opinion, sleeps on. This is 20% less health damage. Well, in a really bad situation, let's say I activate that Iron Halo and it deactivates, and I've got a pixel of health left. You know how that sometimes it gets all the way down, and you definitely do get damage reduction the less health you've got. This is going to give me 20% less health damage, right? Versus this is, I'm not going to take any health damage. I'm just going to take that armor damage, which affords me a chance to start doing charged attacks to create gun strikes to replenish armor. I think that this gives you just a better get out of jail free card, in my opinion. Next is Power Regulator. Iron Halo loses energy 15% more slowly, just not worth it versus better durability. It's not the uptime of it that I think suffers. It's the durability that suffers, where it just gets shot down faster than the actual energy of the Iron Halo that exists. I think very rarely Iron Halo goes all the way through its energy. I think very commonly it gets burst by things being shot at it. Which brings me to our next one, Wrath of the Imperium. When Iron Halo expends all of its energy, enemies in a 5-meter radius take significant damage. It's not a Melta Bomb. It's definitely not that. but it's like a little bit stronger than a frag grenade. And it's a pretty good bomb or explosion that just gives you a lot of breathing room, good damage. You can actually knock a couple things into execute for you. I think this is a really, really good one, especially if you're using in the aforementioned situations before when we're swarmed by swarms. And then our last perk is when Iron Halo is active, all squad members within 100 meters regenerate ability charge 50% faster. So I really like this one. I think it just is a really good party utility, especially if you're playing with an assault or a bulwark. Getting those jump pack charges back online faster is always helpful. Getting that bulwark banner online is great for just full heals. I really like the conversion field, especially if you're playing even too with a sniper or a tactical. Getting that auspex online again, super huge. Sniper being able to camouflage is really great because they can go into camouflage, get a big damage hit, or go into camouflage and go resurrect a teammate, whatever it is. So I love this one. So these are all of our perks. Like I said, if there's anything you'd swap out, go ahead and do it and let it be known in the comment section below. Say, hey, you know what? I swapped this one for this one, and this is how I use that synergy. I'd always love to hear different takes on the perks for our heavy. Jumping into our weapons, we're going to start off with our secondaries. Now, you can choose whichever one you want. I'm going to approach both secondaries as if they're the ones I use primarily, just so that you can get a good idea of both. I think people just say, hey, this is the one I use, screw the rest. I personally use the plasma pistol, but let's go through the bolt pistol first. So starting off on the white one, you don't have any choice. Into the green with Mastercrafted. Here, you've got only 12 shots. Jumping across over here to a better accuracy with 2 more bullets, it's just not worth it. The bolt pistol already kind of has a little bit of a wonkopotamus accuracy rating, and for 2 more bullets, I'd rather have a higher value shot, and I'm gonna talk about that a lot when I talk about the heavy bolter. So I'd stick with the alpha here. Into Artificer, this is one I could see you'd wanting to go with the 4 more shots, but honestly, I think that there's so many ways to get better ammunition on the heavy that you could stick right here and be totally fine with the Salvation of Baka. But Drogo's Reclamation does give you less accuracy and 4 more bullets. You can go with that if you so wish. I think at the last one, though, we drop the accuracy, we go firepower, and we go with the magazine capacity increase, because now we have the perk tree benefits to really benefit us with the Ophidian Liberation Alpha. And the perk tree for this looks like this. So I've got max spread decrease 10% and the max spread decrease on a perfectly timed dodge. Max spread, of course, is going to be that reticle getting larger and smaller depending on your shots. Gun strike reload. After a gun strike, the equipped weapon instantly reloads. So you'll basically have this thing constantly reloaded, because gun strikes are actually quite common once you get better at parrying with a heavy, and you'll find you're going to parry all the goddamn time because things are going to jump up in your face and you're just going to need to do it. The parrying window is actually surprisingly forgiving on on heavy. But moving on, we have max spread decreased by 10%. And then we have headshot damage, 10% more damage. Headshots deal 10% more damage. A gun strike is a headshot. So that's why we're going into Headhunter versus this bottom row. We're going to drop down once real quick for the magazine size increase by 15% of max. So you can see here, we've gone from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That would put us through these first, 5 bolt pistols, right? It's not until we get to Relic that we get to have fun with the rest. So then we're going to jump into magazine capacity increase, getting us into the 20s. Elite Hunter, after killing a Majoris level or higher enemy with a melee weapon, headshots deal 50% more damage. We don't care about that, unfortunately, because we won't be really doing it. But here with the headshots deal 10% more damage, we're just going to get more value out of our gun strikes. Let's take a look at that plasma pistol now. Again, this is the one that I use personally. I enjoy it a lot on my bulwark, and I love it just as much over here. The big thing with the plasma pistol that I enjoy over the over the bolt pistol, in case you're wondering my reasoning, is I like to charge it to max and shoot it at anything that's calling for reinforcements. On Ruthless, you just can't mess with those reinforcements, period. So this is a great way to stagger those things. One charge shot will do it, and it's quick to charge and get that shot out. So we're going to start here with the standard one, coming across over to the firepower or venting speed. This is kind of negligible, honestly. It's 10 more. 10 is basically what a full charge is. So you get 1 extra full charge. So dealer's choice here, I'd probably go with the 10 extra, because 1 more full charge is 1 more possibility to knock someone out of calling for reinforcements. Remember, venting speed is not just simply the time it takes to cool down the weapon when it overheats, or the time when you manually want to cool it, but also how many shots you get before it will overheat. So that's why venting speed is so important. We're going to talk about it quite a bit with the heavy plasma incinerator. Into Artificer, we're just going to stick with the same thing, going with the magazine, and with Relic, we're going to stick with magazine as well. It's just too valuable with the plasma pistol to kind of skirt around it, and with the bolt pistol, that per shot count is just a different beast than the overall mag cap of our plasma pistol. For our perk tree, we're going to start at the bottom here, go with weapon cools 15% faster. We're going to have, after killing 10 enemies in rapid succession, you deal 25% more damage for 5 seconds. Cooldown is 30 seconds. Not crucial, it's just a means to get to this next one. Damage from a charged shot is increased by 10%, which you will be doing quite a bit because charged shots do give us a bit of an AoE burst. And that's what we're going to take advantage of this with these two that increase our blast radius by 5%, totaling up to 10%. Over here, we have shots charged 20% faster. This is very nice because, like I said, shooting a charged shot, it always jumps into like a Sean Connery when I say that. Moneypenny allows me to knock out anyone that's calling for reinforcements. That's really nice. Get the thing online as fast as you can. You could go this route to increase that charge faster to get a total of 40%, which is really good still. I just would prefer the energy reserve to be increased by 20%, and charge shots from plasma weapon only use 2 less energy, which is really nice, right? Because if you take a look at our total magazine without any perks added onto it, 120 divided by 10 is 12, right? Well, 120 divided by 8 is 15. So we get 3 more charge shots out of a full magazine capacity without any perks being considered into this. And this, of course, is going to increase our energy reserve by an additional 20%. This is very substantial. And this is even different than it used to be. It used to be charge shots cost less, so this was even more broken. So that's the max of this tree. If you wanted to go through the top portion, you'd go 1, 2, and then 3 after a perfectly timed dodge. The damage radius of a charge shot increased by 10%. Just not as huge of a benefit for me. I really like this little guy. Let's now go into some primary action. Starting off with my favorite weapon in tabletop and in the heavies repertoire, it's the heavy bolter. Now, I'm not going to lie to you, the heavy bolter is absolute garbage until you get to Relic, and then it becomes very good and punchy and fun. I just want to warn you ahead of time, if you're trying to jump into a higher if this is the like second or third character you're leveling and you're trying to play higher difficulties with your friends that you typically would play, just know the heavy bolter is going to suffer. If you're leveling through for the first time, the heavy bolter is going to underperform, but it will get better. I just want to give that warning up front. And with the first one, we have a very important stat I want to point out. Accuracy. I've talked about this before. Remember, this is the spread, recoil, everything. This is a very important stat because it will stay at 1 if you want it to stay at 1 the entire lifetime of the heavy bolter. Jump into Mastercrafted to talk about this further. We can go with more accuracy and firepower. We can go with less firepower. We can go with more firepower, less accuracy, but more ammo. And lastly, we can go with better venting speed. Screw the venting speed. Really what we're going to talk about are these two. These are the two that you are going to be torn between across your entire playtime of the bolter. The bolter is terribly inaccurate. Becomes more accurate as you progress through the perk tree and through the actual leveling of the weapon and your actual perk tree. But stick with accuracy. Having 25 more shots that are not high value shots are not going to be any better than having 25 less shots that you have double the accuracy rating on. And what I mean by that is you're playing a heavy bolter, dude. No one's gonna burst this bad boy. We're gonna hold it. We're gonna win it. We're gonna act like Arnold Schwarzenegger in the movie Commando. You're just gonna hold that button down because that's how we all approach heavy bolters. But if you have a low accuracy rating, that spread on the reticle is going to increase very quickly. So having a higher accuracy means you're actually going to get more value out of your shots. Those 25 more shots might actually whiff and miss the target because your accuracy is 1. So my heavy bolter stays on accuracy the entire way. Some people might go magazine cap. I prefer accuracy. Please choose what's best for you, but I'm going to go accuracy as we jump into Artificer. Go 1 more accuracy. Again, this still gives us 50 more bullets. That's a significant increase. And as we jump into Relic, I'm again going to go here with the 9 firepower, 4 accuracy. I have the same amount of ammo as I started with, but my ammo effectiveness is just that much better. And remember, perk trees are going to make these things better. The other option here is plus 75, which is a very huge increase. But again, you're just still dealing with 1 accuracy. You're not guaranteed to hit all those 75 shots. The argument can be made about bursting more, about controlling your spread. There's a whole bunch of different things, right? But it's a personal preference of mine that I would like the better accuracy and the lower magazine capacity, because this now brings us into our perk tree. So with our perk tree, you can see that we don't kind of go in a very straightforward line. We've actually taken a lot of things laterally as we progress through this. The first thing here is our weapon cools faster, because this thing will overheat. It's going to happen. And after a perfectly timed dodge, the equip weapon is completely cooled. Why I actually like this with the heavy bolter is I spend a lot of time backpedaling out of heavy stance, out of even aiming down sight period, and just holding down the bolter. So this allows me just to keep shooting it. And then if I perfectly dodge, now it's completely cooled. So maybe there was a situation where, okay, I was letting this cool a little bit, or we were really close to redlining, so I stopped for a second. This gives me the chance to get that cooling completely done by simply avoiding damage. And you're going to be doing lots of dodging and lots of movement in the heavy. Next, we have max ammo reserve of this weapon is increased by 20%, so that 450 is no longer as scary. And we're going to jump down here for headshots, increase 10% more damage. This is tricky, but you do have to aim for headshots with the heavy bolter to get a ton more utility and damage out of it. Each shot penetrates 1 additional target, so now our 450 magazine cap, which has been increased by 20%, is now more deadly per shot because we have some penetration. Into our next one, for when your health is below 30%, headshots deal 25% more damage. Hopefully you don't hang around here as much, but that seems to be the point where damage reduction kicks in. So you'll have quite a bit of DR at that point, but having 25% more damage is really nice for those headshots. We're going to go with a little bit better spread here with while in heavy stance. And no, there's one above it. While in heavy stance, max spread is decreased by 10. Originally, I had gone here and just taken this whole set, but I think it's better if we go in a different direction. I'll talk about this here. So heavy stances, max spread is increased by 10, heavy stance 15%, heavy stance 15%. You want those additional damage increases, or 30% more damage in heavy stance, coupled with anything from our perks that increases heavy stance, whatever, right? Then we go into when you have low ammo, you deal 25% more damage. What a great video. This guy just stumbles through everything. So now, if we're low ammo, we're at 55% more ammo damage. Low ammo is whenever the ammo box turns red. That's considered low ammo. So whenever it's kind of, I think that's probably around 20 or 30% of your total mag cap. I'm not 100% sure on what the percentage point is, but if it's red, you're going to be chunking out tons of damage. And lastly, we have weapon cools 15% faster. So now, at least if we overheat, it's a 30% faster cooldown. Our venting speed is 4, so that does help us out overall. I mean, there can be an argument to be said to go for max ammo here, or damage increase, weapon heating decreased by 10. That could be a better one instead of going with 15% more damage. But I just like that when I'm in heavy stance, I am in heavy stance with the heavy bolter once I level it to this level, the perk tree. If you don't go this route, I think you'll struggle to find a lot of good damage potential here. And if you have any recommendations to swap these around, go ahead and let me know. I think that the heavy bolter is the one that is very perk dependent to get the most out of. Next up is the heavy plasma incinerator. And honestly, I did not like my time as heavy playing with the heavy plasma incinerator until I got it to relic. And relic, it is relic, by the way. I know it's right there, but it was a pain in the ass. I did not enjoy my time, but getting into relic finally opened up a lot more damage potential with this weapon. But some things to consider with this. We've already talked about venting speed with the plasma pistol. In case you jumped to this portion, let me just tell you, venting speed is, of course, how many shots we're going to get off before the weapon overheats, on top of how fast it can manually vent, or it automatically vents depending on if you overheat or not. But the other thing is rate of fire on a plasma weapon, period, helps out with the charge time. So a higher rate of fire weapon, of course, it's going to make it shoot faster, duh. But also it will charge faster if you have a higher rate of fire. Know those things as we progress through this. So our first one here is firepower and venting speed. I actually like this more than the magazine capacity because 3 and 2 is a significant increase. I find in these two portions, I was hitting that venting cap very quickly. So I go with the Mastercrafted Alpha. Into Artificer, We again have venting speed. We have 10 more here though for venting speed, or an increase to the rate of fire. Again, I really like to stick with venting speed. I don't find magazine capacity to be too much of an issue, especially with the perk tree. But if you want, go ahead, go with the magazine capacity. Just know that you're going to really... the problem I find with the heavy plasma incinerator is if it overheats, that is such a huge portion of your damage that is locked out for a little bit. The same can be said of the heavy bolter, but I find that the heavy bolter's ability to manage overheating is far easier than the heavy plasma incinerator, which can be 2, 3, 4 shots and then it's overheated, whatever it is. So you have to really manage the heat in a way stricter way on the plasma incinerator. This just gives me better breathing room in my opinion. Jumping into relic, you've guessed it, I go with the venting speed. The rate of fire one is actually very fun though, because you have pretty good venting speed at 2. You have the same as the other one, but my point is you have less shots, but you can shoot much faster and you get a much faster charge, which is very, very fun. But again, I like that venting speed because we're going to pick up plenty of ammo passively as a heavy or through our perk trees, whichever you wish. But again, if you want to go with the magazine capacity, you don't find that the venting speed is too much of an issue, please just go with 15 more shots. It's very significant. Now for our perk tree, I'm going to stick with the top. So common shots generate 10% less heat. You will be doing lots of common shots. I think the trap of the heavy plasma incinerator is doing nothing but charge shots. And you have to lob the shots. The common shots are much faster. So this gives you a small little AoE burst onto Minoris things that you can clear out quickly, while you'll use your bigger charge shots on groups of Majoris or higher. Into the next one, after killing 10 enemies in rapid succession, weapons do not heat for 5 seconds. Cooldown is 30 seconds. So if you shoot this into a group of Minoris and blow them all up, and try to do this maybe 1 or 2 times, this is cool because the weapon won't heat after that. You just have to be very clever about it, and it requires 10 kills, which can be very tricky to get off within a rapid succession. Rapid succession seems to be within 2 or 3 seconds of the kills. So if you shoot, you charge up to full, shoot and blow up a group of Minoris, shoot 2 common shots to try to figure this out. You'll see this little icon will appear in the upper left corner when you have this active. High velocity, when in heavy stance, shots charge 10% faster. We're going to couple these two together. So now shots charge 20% faster. I can't tell you how big of a boon that is, because that's one of the biggest holdups with the weapon is you don't feel like it's doing any damage unless you charge it, and the charging takes forever. But also, energy reserve of plasma weapon increases by 20%. That's nice. If I had gone with the bottom line, this is good. Charge shots from plasma weapon use 2 less energy. But I decided to stick with the top here to get more value out of the weapon. I could not go down and then over. It's either go down and up or up and down 1. You can't jump this line. Next, when your health is below 30%, shots charge 25% faster, so even quicker heavy shots. Damage from charge shots is increased by 10. And after a perfectly timed dodge, you deal 25% more damage for 5 seconds. We don't necessarily care so much about that. We just wanted charge shots to generate 10% less heat. That was the big one. This is also nice. While in heavy stance, your fire rate is increased, but I just wanted less heat on my charge shots, so I went this route. I definitely think this is still a good one if you want to go with it. But here's your heavy plasma incinerator. It's going to be cumbersome, but once you really get to the good point with Relic with good perks, you'll find that this is a very, very fun weapon. Our last weapon to talk about is the Multi-Melta. I have not finished leveling the Multi-Melta. I have done it on a different build of the game before it came out, but still, it's the Multi-Melta. You don't need it to be in Relic to be good. It's the only weapon that you can have as a white standard weapon going into Ruthless and still do considerable amounts of damage and stagger things. So don't worry about it at any point. Every single perk is just going to make it better. We are expecting a patch that will change the way that the Melta interacts with contested health. Right now, it will overheal your contested health versus just healing what your contested health should be. So consider those things. It will change. Its damage will be the same. It will replenish contested health. It just won't overheal you. That is an unintended side effect of the game right now. So depending on when you're reading this or watching this, that might be different. So with this, the thing I focus on with the Multi-Melta is its biggest fault, its biggest weakness, range. Everyone else I know is going to focus on magazine capacity. I'm choosing not to, but you definitely can. Rate of fire is also good, but I don't find it to be that. I don't find the rate of fire of 1 to be that damaging for the Multi-Melta because it's just such a disgusting weapon. You kill or knock things or stagger them so fast that the rate of fire as a weapon choice doesn't bother me. The Melta rifle, for perk trees, I want rate of fire. So for the Multi-Melta, don't worry about it. Into our next one here, I'm just going to stack range. I'm just going to stack range all the way over here to Relic. That's all I want because, like I said, the biggest shortcoming here to the Multi-Melta is range. If you're dealing with a Neurothrope, Xenothrope, then you have to deal with something that is above you, and you can't just simply shoot it. You have to stand pretty much underneath it. And getting that range increase means that I can also hit more enemies to replenish more ammo, so I'm less worried about the magazine capacity being at 20 versus being at 30. Of course, 30 is really nice and juicy, but I like that range because I can hit more targets and get that magazine capacity back faster. That's my personal opinion, the way I approach it. Please feel free to approach it in a way you like instead. Perk tree here, we're going to go increase capacity of the ammo reserve. That right away helps out with 4 extra shots, right? And then we're going to go, yeah, it's 4. So what is 20% of 20? I'm like, it's 4. Elite Restoration, killing a Majoris level or higher enemy restores 10% of your max ammo reserve. Cannot exceed max ammo capacity. Cooldown is 30 seconds. So just execute any of the ones that you've put into execute and you get 10% of your max ammo reserve back. That's 2 in this case. While in heavy stance, fire rate is increased by 15%, which is great. And I'm going to jump down here for effective range is increased by 1 meter. I really toiled with going down this whole tread to get over to here, but I didn't like it. We only get 10 perks. So these are the first 3 perks that we're going to talk about. But I want to drop down to at least get that effective range increased by 1. That's still very valuable. So first 3, our 4th perk here is heavy immunity. While in heavy stance, you do not lose control from heavy hits. What's nice about this is it's not going to knock you over, but it will not turn off your iron halo. Your iron halo will get turned off if you get knocked over by a heavy hit. So this is nice. So that's our 4th perk. Our 5th perk is after a finisher, fire rate increases by 25% for 5 seconds. So any kind of finisher, gun strikes that kill are finishers, or executes, those are finishers. So that is our 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th point. Our 6th point goes into while in heavy stance, you deal 15% more damage. Our next point goes down here into fast regeneration. Killing an enemy restores armor 0.5 seconds earlier. Same thing with this one. And then we jump into our final one with elite health. When your health is below 30%, killing a Majoris level or higher enemy with melee damage restores health by 5%. So it's just a way to get a little bit of health when you are in the red line. The alternative, if you would like to take it, is this perk, Death Strike. After killing a Majoris level or higher enemy with a melee weapon, you deal 25% more damage for 5 seconds. It does not work with the Multi-Melta, unfortunately. This is a bug, and hopefully it'll be fixed soon. But if you go this route, the top route, you don't have to drop down here. And if you do that, then you get the increased capacity. So I don't like the, I'm sorry. I like this. I just would rather have a 5% heal when I'm in a bad situation. So this can actually get me up to 30% if I'm at like 5% health, which is actually very common. I find that if I'm low in health, I'm not exactly at that border of 30% or above. I'm usually at like 15 or 20%. So this getting me a little bit of health, and all you have to do is kill a Majoris or higher with melee damage, which is an execute. So it's very easy to actually get this one going. So that is our Multi-Melta. These are our weapons. Let's talk some lessons. So playing the heavy is an interesting class, and it's one that I really struggled with. I hated it. I hated every minute of the first portions of playing heavy. I found that the parry was super clunky. I couldn't really get around it. I felt like I was just really running into too many input lags in between trying to jump between weapons very quickly. I didn't understand melee for this character. I really struggled. So I'm not going to make this video and tell you it's the best class and this is why. I'm going to tell you I sucked at it because I played Bulwark and Assault, and I'm so used to being up close and personal in melee and succeeding. But then I got more time under the belt of heavy, and I played more with the perks of heavy, and I've played more with the perks of the weapons of heavy, and I found that heavy is actually, you have to play it very mobile. You can't be heavy and sit there and just take damage. You have to jump around a lot. You have to dodge. You have to parry. And once you figure out the parry timing, you're actually really good at it. I know it's not a block weapon. but I feel like it's like a fencing weapon when it comes to parrying timing, because it's actually quite good. And I found now with all of the range damage that I can mitigate, a lot of this gameplay you're going to see that I'm at full health a lot of the time, and I'm either on substantial or ruthless in this gameplay, just depending on when I'm playing. And that's pretty significant. All my other classes, especially Bulwark and Assault, I don't spend this much time at full health, and that's a pretty cool thing about playing heavy. You have such a great way to shut down one of the most punishing damage aspects of this game, which is massed range damage. It's the same thing if you play Darktide as it is in this game. Ranged damage will end your playthrough, and you can completely mitigate it. And don't be afraid to run in front of people and pop your shield. That's going to be a pretty big fun thing that you can do, right? Like, people are kind of holding the line, trying to shoot or do whatever. You can just run in front, pop your shield, and hold down your Multi-Melta to give them hell, shoot in some charged plasma shots, or just unleash hell with your bolter. You have a lot of really cool play styles and functionalities with the heavy, but I think that it's one that you have to build into in ways that are very different than the other classes. I think Bulwark, you gradually get stronger. Assault, I gradually felt better at being mobile. Tactical, I felt like I could actually do damage at range as I progressed. The heavy, across the board, I felt like I could actually perform better in melee. I could mitigate the damage towards me. I was doing more range damage. I had more to deliver to the party the further I got in the class and the better I got at timing and realizing how it operated. So if you're playing heavy and you're struggling, you're like, why the hell is anyone playing this class? Don't worry, I was there too. But some of the things you need to really think about are down to the individual weapons. Those are going to determine how you play or what you're going to do. So starting off, let's talk about the heavy bolter. The heavy bolter's playstyle is not what you would imagine, especially if you read any of the books, right? Like, you read, it's Warriors of Ultramar, I think. It's an Ultramarine book with Uriel Ventress. One of the guys that's supporting him is just chunking things apart with a heavy bolter. That's what you read in the lore. It's not like that here. You're not going to necessarily chunk things apart. You're going to kill waves of Minoris very quickly, but anything that mounts any kind of resistance against you, it's going to feel like a damage sponge until you get to a higher level. So what you need to know is you have to focus on those headshots. Spray and pray into anything that is not a Majoris or higher, but once you're doing a Majoris, really try to, not necessarily 3 or 4 round bursts, but hold it down, let that reticle recover, hold it down, let that reticle recover. It's going to also help out with your heating so that you do not overheat this weapon and just get frustrated. So that is your heavy bolter. And another big aspect of it is the heavy bolter will not accumulate heat if you are not in heavy stance. Meaning if you just hold down the shoot button, it will shoot wildly all over the place. But what you do with this is you backpedal when you're being swarmed by Minoris, you hold down the button and you just let the weapon chunk into things. It'll kill them pretty effectively. And if they get too close, dodge back and keep doing the same thing. Dodge back and keep doing the same thing. And I don't know how I hit the same vocal inflection with both those sentences, but I nailed it. So use the heavy bolter defensively when you have to, but when you're offensive, try to really focus on headshots, because that is how we've kitted this out perk wise, and you'll find that you'll do far more damage and you'll actually melt big scary targets. In the lower difficulties, you'll be fine as long as you're using an appropriate strength weapon, but just know that if you're on a higher difficulty trying to level this one up, it will feel punishing. Our next one here is the heavy plasma incinerator. And like I said, the heavy plasma incinerator kind of contributed to me hating heavy, because it has a very funky relationship between the charge, the shot, the lob, and the arc. A common shot, no charge, shoots faster than a fully charged heavy plasma shot. And you can actually get quite a bit of AoE damage by just barely charging it. Like, hold it for a split second and then let it go. Not even a split second, hold it for a beat. Like, as soon as you hear it go, let go. You'll release a charged shot that only takes 1 ammunition, but it does more AoE damage. This is a cool way to get a lot more functionality out of the heavy plasma incinerator, and it's something that I found to really help me get more rate of fire, more damage, and better magazine capacity, as well as heat economy versus just heavy shot, release, heavy shot, release. And the big thing to know with any plasma weapon is that you have to lead the target. If you move to the left and want to shoot to the right, you have to lead further. If you are shooting to the left to something that is to the left and you're moving to the left, you lead differently because that ball is going to traverse a different arc. And again, this is the arc of the charge shot versus the common shot versus a half charge shot is all differently. All performs differently. So just try to use that little weird grenade reticle that doesn't really make much sense. You're going to suck with it for a little bit, but it will click in and you'll get it. But I can't tell you how many shots I just whiffed in the first 2 levels of this thing. Through Mastercrafted, I was terrible with it. And it really takes understanding how the physics operate with plasma and you moving in this game. If you play any kind of plasma weapon in PvP, this is super evident. But in PvE, you'll find that this is going to be not as punishing, but it takes you some time to click into. So just be patient with it and know those things. Up next, we have the Multi-Melta. There's just no notes here. Just hold down the damn button. That's really it. It's a super straightforward weapon. If you have the perks that require heavy stance, as is true for any weapon we've talked about, make sure you pop yourself into heavy stance, but don't hold heavy stance. This is something that is outside of Multi-Melta and it applies to all 3 weapons. Don't hold heavy stance and shoot. Pop into heavy stance, release the weapon. Pop into heavy stance, release the weapon. If you release the weapon, release the trigger, whatever it is. This enables you to get far more value out of stuff. So take the plasma, for example. You can charge it, not in heavy stance. Your character will be able to move around a lot easier and a lot better, and then pop into heavy stance to release the charge, getting all of the benefits of while in heavy stance do X, Y, and Z. Of course, if you have the perks say while in heavy stance charge faster, you won't get those benefits, but sometimes having the mobility is just far better in certain situations. Same thing with the Multi-Melta. Don't just sit there and stay in heavy stance and hold down that right trigger. Your fire rate's low. Heavy stance, shoot the trigger, release heavy stance, move around, look around, whatever you need to do. Give yourself a beat, heavy stance again, pull the trigger. Use heavy stance variably depending upon how you're moving and what kind of availability you have to do so. If your character's swarmed, don't stay in heavy stance and shoot. You're just going to get killed. Jump around, move around, dodge, parry things. All those things are crucial to staying alive as a heavy. I wish the class played where I just simply sit there, widen my stance and just unleash hell on stuff, but that's not the case. This class plays far more mobile than you would think playing with these weapons. If you played Space Marine 1, you remember that heavy stance was a lockdown, right? Especially if you played like Planet Side and you played with the heavy armor. Remember how you'd have to like bolt yourself into the ground, then you could shoot faster? It's the same thing with the heavy stance here, but you can actually move, but it's also very risky to do it because on higher difficulties, you are going to be swarmed and you're going to be parrying and dodging far more than you think, meaning you're going to be doing a lot of gun strikes and a lot of, the final point here, charge strikes. So this all culminates into falling apart. Higher difficulties, you are not going to be able to just sit there and shoot and boot. Is that a term? Sticking with it. You're going to find yourself swarmed. And in those moments, spam your charged attack. Don't supercharge it. Hold it down for the beat to get the charge animation going, let it go, and then start the next charge right into it so you do the double pound. This is going to open up gun strikes for you that you then take to get armor back. You don't need to do 2. I personally find that doing 2 is the best way to approach it, because by doing so, you just clear more, you do more damage, you clear more Minoris, and it gives you a gun strike. It's a better overall value. You'll find that your melee damage will be pretty significant if you're just spamming those charged attacks. You get swarmed, just do 1 pound, gun strike. Pound, gun strike. You're just going to rinse and repeat that formula. You'll see it in some of this gameplay, and it looks tacky and it looks dumb, but I promise you, it allows you to control a swarm of Minoris while your friends deal with everything else on the battlefield when you get attacked. Because the alternative here, if you're not using a Multi-Melta, is to roll around indefinitely and get an occasional shot off. This is the way to survive if you're not using a Melta. Melta can just pound, aim down sights and destroy everything in front of it and do the same thing over, rinse and repeat. But this is how you stay alive. So hopefully this helps you out in approaching the heavy class. And it gives you lessons that I wish I had known going into it, because of all the videos I've made so far, this is the one I was least confident making the video. Before making the video, I was like, man, I don't know if I'm going to be good at talking about this class. And it took me far more time getting into it, learning timing and all these things to feel more confident playing. Heavy is the very first class I played in the game, and it's the class I put down the fastest to go play other things. And now that I've come back around to it with better game knowledge, I still suffered, but it took me time to get into it. And once I got into it, and once I got the perks on the weapons and the perks on the character, I found I really became a juggernaut. So stick with it. It is a pain in the ass. And if you have any tips to anyone who's playing heavy, let it be known in the comment section below. Maybe there's a whole entire mechanic or approach that you are really fond of that I didn't touch on. Go ahead and let it be known below. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching here today. Have a good one and take care.